This is the CLG Podcast. I'm Devin Nash, CEO of CLG Gaming, and I have with me the man, the myth, the legend, Matthew Nashua. What's up, my man?
What's up? How's it going?
Good, super good. And this is the first attempt at this podcast because we are trying to communicate better with our community. I think it's one of the major objectives, and also dispelling some of the greater myths around what CLG is and isn't and what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think by the time this gets uploaded, the community will have received something from me that will also dispel.
How much are you going to talk about that? That's exciting.
We'll see. I'm kind of dabbling in it here and there. Maybe I'll put some emphasis on it for them to read it. So we'll see.
Well, you already gave them such a hint.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
It's going to be good. So, there's. I think there's been a little bit of soul searching in the last few weeks, just in general with CLG, about how we communicate with people and how we communicate with each other too.
Right.
That, like, what is interesting about these kind of podcasts is, like, it's not just the outside viewers that get the perspective, right? Because people internally in the organization listen to this, and then, like, they get a perspective on what CLG is, and they may not have that full idea, right? So
right.
I actually think that this will eventually have a greater impact internally than it will externally.
Possibly. I think we talked about before where it's like there's the filter, right? Where, like, you have information and then it gets filtered to me, and then I filter it to coaches, and then they filter it to players, and then it gets filtered to the community.
It's the blast radius.
Yeah.
The blast radius is like the explosion happens, and then it's always right at my front door.
Yeah.
Then the further out it goes from there, the worse it gets. But within the kind of like five, like the ring of five, the directors we have, everybody pretty much knows what's going on.
Right.
And then ever since we started adding Rickeh and Jack to staff meetings, it's been better too.
Mm-hmm.
So once they got in, they were getting more in the know too. And then I actually had a meeting with Overwatch today, which was which went really well.
Nice.
Like it felt a lot like one of those staff meetings where, like, we sat down, like, we talked about what was going on in the company. I actually used the template for general updates that we used with and that actually went really well. So I think if I do that one of those, like, once a week and just tell them, like, what's going on in the company, it'll be way better for the teams and just communicating with the teams.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Because, like, me just sitting in this, like, box here is, like, not good, but yeah.
So what was the response?
Positive.
Yeah.
It was. Well, they feel pretty good about the organization anyway. I think in terms of teams, like, they're, I would say, like, at least the most outspoken in terms of, like, actually, like, last night they told me, they were like, we were all working, like, part-time jobs, like, we couldn't get after it, and from a competitive standpoint, like, we didn't know what to do, and, like, we got here, had this house, had everything set up. I think, like, that Overwatch team is probably the best example of CLG working right.
Yeah.
We haven't always had examples that good, but, like, I think that everything went right with that team. Like, right from the get-go, our communication was really good. We set it up at BlizzCon, like, that went really good. We met iShiny, like, that was, like, going. Then we, like, immediately got a house for them. Immediately got into, like, the renovate. You got the coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, how fast was that? That was like a month.
No, I signed Henry probably about 2 months after the team was signed, and they were here for about a month on campus before he actually came on campus and, like, was fully, like, involved with them. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of a cool story, like, people would kind of be interested in know. It's like that, how I went about acquiring the Overwatch team, I think it was of interest to people, because my approach and what I was doing, I think, was very different than what everybody else was doing at the time. And you kind of touched on something that's, like, really important with these guys, is 3 of the players were students in college.
Mm-hmm.
The other 3, I think Hydration was the only one that didn't have, like, a commitment outside of school, maybe. But, like, everybody had something going on. And our team, when they were the 1%, Team 1%, they were max playing together as a team 4 hours a day.
Whoa.
And so they were competing at a high level. Like, on Gosu, at the time when I was talking to them, they were around, like, I don't know, like 15 or so in NA.
Mm-hmm.
And they were competing with really, like, what were top teams at that time. They were competing and beating, like, really solid teams as well. And then in discussions with them and understanding their drive and motivation and their hunger and what they really wanted, and knowing what they're able to do with just such little time, it was very obvious that if I gave these guys the team or the resources and the time to actually develop their skills, like they'd be a top team.
Yeah.
And it's proven so far
yeah,
to be the
it's
case.
True. Yeah.
And so, you know, the community, like when we first signed them, the response was fairly positive, specific to like CLG community. Outside of that, it was kind of like mixed reactions. And I understand why, but nobody knew what I knew, and nobody knew these guys and like what they really meant. Or what, sorry, not what they meant, but what they were really trying to do. Right?
Yeah.
And so I think Miso and iShiny both talked to me, and they said, yeah, there was somebody who was saying that CLG made like the worst esports signing by acquiring this team,
really?
like all this stuff. Yeah, and this just
was that a significant percentage? Because you're always going to get the dude in the corner.
Yeah.
It's like this sucks. Like that's like, or was it actually just like?
It was a guy that's.
It was a dude.
Yeah, it was a dude.
A dude. Yeah.
That.
If I had a nickel for every a dude,
yeah.
I would be.
But the good thing was like this didn't discourage the team, and it was more like motivation, right? And they just took it and they're like, no, we're actually going to be who we believe we can be and who I believe they can be, and they are continuing to move in that
Demonstrate
direction.
it. Yeah.
At the time of this recording, earlier this week, they had a qualifier that was formatted in a tournament format. It was a little unique, but they ended up winning the whole thing for the qualifier.
Yep.
And then now they'll play this weekend. You know, they've taken matches off or maps off Selfless. Like they're just competing with the top teams now in such a short time period because now they have the tools and resources. And so, like I said, when I went to recruit, I wasn't looking at leaderboards. I wasn't looking at all this stuff. I was looking at attitude. I was looking at commitment.
Okay, so this is indicative of where we should go because like this is what people don't understand. I think it's that the people don't realize how much impact or like you have on roster selection and on like starting with Overwatch. That's actually just an example of how you apply across all of our teams, right? Like you are literally the director, the esports director. Like you run all of that, right?
Yeah.
Like that process is something I really want to have people understand. I think it's really important.
Yeah, so like expanding to other teams, right? So every coaching, hiring, or termination like goes through me. Same thing goes with like player acquisitions, removing players, like the Counter-Strike team and the development there. Like those are all things that I don't want to take sole credit for because that's inaccurate. But obviously my role, I have a major role in that and like how that process comes to be. So working with Amapet and Mike with the Counter-Strike team, giving them my thoughts and feedback, working with other organizations, finding out what players are available, you know, researching them, scouting them, all that kind of stuff, is something that Amapet and I specifically worked a lot on. And then as Mike's role continued to develop in the Counter-Strike team, then he became a little bit more a part of that as well. But it was pretty much myself and Amapet having conversations around what are the team's needs and what are the team's current issues. And so really, as a director, I kind of led our conversations as to like, this is what we need to do, these are changes we need to make, and this is what we need to look for. And so I'm a pet understanding in-game mechanical skill and talent better than I gave him the responsibility on that part. I took is this person really the fit of CLG attitude, like what the team dynamic needs, and kind of understanding the team from a chemistry perspective. And so collaboratively we worked on that process, and I had to give him gentle pushes and nudges in directions that were uncomfortable for him, but ultimately I think led to the best decisions possible. Because obviously now our Counter-Strike team is very different than when I first came in. When I first came in, the big issue, I remember you telling me, was like, we cannot get relegated, right? Which now,
that was really scary.
One season ago, and now we're in the season where we're trying to qualify for the LAN, right?
That's crazy. You're absolutely right. I didn't even realize that transpired in that span of time.
Yeah.
It's so hard to see. That is an overarching theme, the long game, man.
Yep.
Like the long game is something that so few people actually see. We are so in the long game in this company, it is ridiculous.
100%.
Like that, and the CS:GO team is interesting too because there with the LCS team, like you and I have had like long hours where we like sit and talk about what is going on with that team and what we need to do. But like the CS:GO team, like I didn't have enough context into what was going on. That was just like you had to take that on, right?
Yeah.
And like with Chet and Mike, like just get after it, and you did. Like
I'd say that's probably in my probably about 6 months or so now that I've been here. Maybe a little bit longer now. I don't really know. I think it's been 6 months.
Has it?
I think so.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, I think in the time period, like that's probably like my most proud accomplishment, I guess, as far in
Magnum
terms of,
opus so far. Yeah.
just in terms of like purely competition stuff. There's other stuff I'm obviously proud of, but like
Yeah.
in terms of like competitive integrity, making sure we're putting out teams to be proud of and teams that the community cares about. That's probably what I'm most proud of thus far.
Yeah.
Because it was probably the biggest team issues. Like of all the teams, like it's probably like the biggest one to tackle at the time. Because we had Ethan Sabrosin just came on.
Right.
They were brand new. Never been pros before.
Yeah.
GRT was here at the time too, and you know he was trying to do the best that he could in his role. And then really, I just had to come in and mix it all up and make all the changes necessary so that we could get to
the first time that we talked about this, right, and you were coming in, do you remember I was like, shake up everything, like throw over the tables, like cause a bunch of trouble, like make everybody, especially like the coaches and everybody, uncomfortable if you can, because like put them in a position where they are going to have to grow into stronger versions of themselves. And you totally and utterly did that, especially for CS. Like one of my core objectives for this entire company is that everybody's moving upward.
Right.
And like that really had to come into existence with CS:GO. But I also told I told Overwatch today, and I think this is really true, that like in my entire time here, what you also did with the Overwatch team is probably one of like the top 5 like best decisions that I think like have been made, like period, was getting that team, bringing them in, their attitudes, their contribution to the organization, how they stay after every night, play board games, play ping pong, stuff like that. Like they're really a fundamental part of the culture. Everybody knows them, everybody likes them. It's such a huge cultural impact, and it's a real positive. That was a big success too. Yeah.
And what I like too is, and I guess what I took advantage of and identified is I have an opportunity with the Overwatch team that I probably will never get with another team.
What do you mean?
And so what I was able to do is, not only did I get to build a team from scratch, but I also took advantage of what I'm identifying as like a preseason to Overwatch League, right? So I have X amount of time to actually get them to the caliber that they need to be to compete at the highest level possible. And so by giving them Henry as the coach and really giving them an opportunity to grow, like I took advantage of that, right? Like I told you in the beginning of this, they were not the best skilled team when I originally signed them. And I knew that, and I was okay with that. My risk was that can I get them to where they need to be, right?
Yeah.
And I'm almost there, or they're almost there. I don't want to take credit for it because they're the ones that are putting in the work. But they are almost where we need them to be.
Well, I think a lot of the teams that are going to field Overwatch teams it feels like to me that what people are doing with Overwatch right now, they're waiting for Blizzard to do something to build the infrastructure. And that's going to put them way behind us. For like they're going to be really far behind because actually I was talking to the Overwatch guys today, and they were saying like this big deal about geolocating, right? Where like now we have, I guess, Boston Splice, like Boston I just learned that today, like that Splice is now a Boston team. Miami Heat, right, is Misfits.
So they
renamed.
It keeps like everything's changing right now. I'm trying to keep up, but like I don't know for sure.
If that's actually like happening, then I feel like those teams, if they're gonna be located like geolocated, they're gonna have to really struggle with infrastructure. It's gonna be really hard. Like, but that's that thing you nailed on about how you. I think this is the most like misunderstood thing, and it's like the skill differential mechanically between the top 10 players, like 1 and 10, is not that much. I don't think. I think that what really makes a difference is the attitude and the drive that person brings towards the game.
Absolutely.
And top, like, you have a sports background, right? So, like, and a psychology background. So it feels like that's how we've been treating top athletes for years.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, like, it hasn't translated into esports, and people get pissed off when you don't recruit the like, whatever the community's perception of the top mechanical player is at the time, which is oftentimes entirely subjective, too.
Yeah.
When you really dig into the data.
Yeah. And it's okay. So this is really good because I literally so the day that we're recording is the day of Fight for the Crown. So I've been watching today the.
Well, by the time that the podcast goes out,
it would already have happened.
So you can talk about the results.
Yeah, I will talk about the results.
Okay, cool. All right.
So
yeah.
That's what I'm gonna get into.
Yeah.
So today I've been watching Echo Fox, their little docuseries with CWC that they're doing, like the lead up to tonight's event, right? Now, I don't know how much of this is staged or not, and some of it probably is, and some of it's probably authentic, but Jace and Rick are using the leaderboards to build their team.
What do you mean?
So
they're literally going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
And then,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And so one of the things that's happening in the show, I haven't, to be clear, I have not finished. I'm on episode 3 of 5, so I actually don't know how this ends.
Is it an hour long each? Or
they're
what?
like, no, they're super short, like 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So I'll finish it today. But, yeah, one of the super weird. So one of the things they were requiring of their 5th player was to be in the top 10 leaderboards of Twin Galaxies leaderboard system to be on the team, which was
That's weird. Yeah.
Weird approach.
Well, that might be because of the partnership.
Yeah, and I get that, and it's like a promo thing for Twin Galaxies. Like I totally understand like that whole aspect, but it also really is strange that if you would make a requirement for someone to be on a leaderboard, for them to actually participate in your team, you're not, in my opinion, you're not building a team. Because just because somebody's really good doesn't mean they're really good for your team, right? So let's go back to CS:GO for a second. So FNS, right? We acquired him and was obviously a previous CLG member, and a lot of criticism around him was that he's not a top fragger. I didn't acquire him to be a top fragger. I don't expect him to be a top fragger. If he's a top fragger, we got real issues in our team because it means everybody else who should be fragging is not. So I built the team because the way I built it was like we needed a strong leader because the team didn't have a leader. And we needed a strong leader. We needed somebody that was going to put in the hours, that was going to be a set expectations and represent like what the team actually needs to achieve.
Yeah. And
so when we got on calls and we're interviewing people and we were talking to different players, FNS stood out like his interview was like way better than anybody else's. Like, and he actually understood what it needed to happen, and you could see his growth as a player over the years, right? Like I wasn't here when he was part of CLG, but from what I was still really good. It was just that I think the dynamic of the team was so different back then because that was JDM, Tarek, James. Like we have a totally different team today. Right.
Yeah.
And so.
And you had a lot of people competing for that's what it was. You had a lot of people competing for IGL on that previous team.
Okay.
Effectively.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember like one of the problems that we had was too many people actually contributed and talking, and no one really knew
like
what.
roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like who speaks and who speaks up and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all that to say is, FNS's whole his primary role on that team is to lead. He's to IGL, he's to set the example, he puts in extra hours with Chet and all that stuff. Like that's like what I needed, and that's what he signed up for, and that's what he's doing. And so that's, in my opinion, that's building a team. You fit the needs and you look at players that actually complement any deficiencies that you have. So going back to the leaderboard system, like if Echo Fox truly did that, or they just did it for film, is the whole other story. I don't really know.
Yeah.
But like that's not building a team. Like that's just getting a bunch of like top 5 dudes together and hope they work, right? Because you're missing the team chemistry component.
Yeah.
As well as roles, right? So if you have top 5 fraggers, well, okay, who's opping? Who's IGL? Who's playing the support role, right? Like you're gonna have people fighting over different positions and getting frustrated with each other.
But you don't have people in esports yet that are thinking in those terms. we don't have talent scouts right now in the industry that are like, no one knows how to look for players unless you're on the challenger boards, right? Like if you're on the leaderboards for something, then that's largely how we still pick LCS players. And I mean, I think that's got to change with collegiate or academy teams.
Yeah, like CLG Black, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's what we're trying to do with those teams, and also I think that will eventually expand to any esport that has even remotely, like, probably every esport, actually. Yeah, eventually. Like I think having runners up would be not only a lot of motivation for players, but also, at least for CLG, I think it's something that we have to really take a look at, especially next 6 months to a year, and if as budget allows and becomes more available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, building teams is probably my favorite part of the job.
Is it?
Yeah, I love building teams because that's what I've done in the past, and like with my clinical psych background, like just understanding like individuals and needs and how to make things work and when things are not working.
Well, you do these in-depth interviews with the players too, right? So like when we're actually, because we also interviewed several players before FNS.
Right.
So and you went deep into those guys and figured out like how is this going to connect to the team, and like you kind of have to make that net in your head, like connecting everything together.
Yeah.
And
like that goes into like the acquisition of Rick, right? Where how that played out is actually like really cool in my opinion. Like super, that was like a really cool story about like how he got into it. So I have a good working relationship with a few of the people in Renegades, I would say, because I had tried, or they had reached out to me and I had essentially kind of done like a brief consulting with them, like got on a phone call. They were having player issues and different things, and they were just kind of like, hey, can you give us thoughts and feedback, like what are you guys doing and all that kind of stuff. And so from that conversation, we've always stayed in contact, and you know, I reached out to them, gave them an opportunity, they kind of reached out to me, gave me an opportunity, and so with that being said, the opportunity they presented was Rick, right? So they were saying like, hey, do you want him? And at the time, he wasn't a player that we were actively seeking, and so I talked to Amapet and I said like, hey man, like we've got to try this guy out, you know, and you know, he's like, yeah, he's like, let's do it, and so we tried him out. Simultaneously, Hazed is still with the team at this time as like a fill-in, and so we're working with both, and it became really evident like Rick was really the guy that we needed.
Yeah.
And just maturity is so important in esports. It's like we can get to that topic, but like he's mature. He has his in-game knowledge, his ability to adapt into both op and rifle. Like it was like too good to be true, right? And then so. Yeah, obviously did all what I needed to do to acquire him, and that happened, and then he was like the missing piece of the puzzle for us, right? Because we've got the IGL, we got that sorted out, Sabrosa has stepped down, and so we just needed to find like that guy that could really frag for us, and just had really good game sense, and that was him, and it's worked ever since.
It was a pretty fortunate pickup in the sense that like, we had been after a few other players in the scene, and we're not getting a lot of luck. We were getting outbidded pretty hard, actually, and that's kind of indicative of, I guess, just writing down topics for later, but just like the investment versus no investment, like current state of CLG, when you go in for someone that you legitimately think is going to be a great fit, and then like what actually bothers me a lot of the time is that. And this is not to, I guess, to trash other teams, but whenever you say that, you're about to. But I really do feel like in a lot of those situations, the players would have been happier here.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, just happier, like happier as people. I don't know if they would have had better competition results. They would have been happier as people, though. They probably would have better competition results too. But and so it was frustrating to me for that to basically it was continuously happening in CS:GO for about a month. We were just like everyone we hit was just getting instantly. Like some kind of ridiculous offer from a VC team, and we bounced back. Like he kind of just came out of nowhere, like Rickeh did. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because he...
To me, at least, he's like, he just like warped in, and you're like...
Yeah, because Renegades... So Renegades obviously made changes to the roster.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Did they remove him from the roster? Is that what happened?
They removed him from the starting roster.
Okay.
And so I won't go into great detail on that, because that's like their story.
Yeah, it's whatever. Yeah.
As to why that is. However, the reasonings why that happened were not of concern to us, and we got like why that had happened. And so, yeah, it wasn't really an issue, and it had nothing to do with his ability to play the game at all. So it was, yeah, it made so much sense. And obviously, it's continued to work. Now, with that being said, like, the team is getting better.
Yeah.
But they're not where I want them to be. I think that's super important.
Okay. Well, what does that vision look like to you?
Like, there's no reason why we should not be a top 3 NA team, like, at all. There's no reason why we should not be going deep into majors.
Do you feel like we have the infrastructure that supports a top 3 team?
Absolutely, and we'll get into that. But before we do, like, going back to Star Ladder in Ukraine, one thing that really bothered me was casters were like, CLG should be happy that they got this far. CLG should be this. And I'm like, I'm sitting at home and I'm like, pissed. Like, no, like, nobody expects them to be here. And like, this guy, like, I expected them to be here, right? Like, I'm expecting them to win the whole thing. Like, I didn't send them over to get 8th place.
Yeah.
Like, that's not why I sent them to Ukraine. I sent them to Ukraine to win it.
Yeah.
And so when the team came back, I had a conversation with them and I said, I really want you to hear what I'm trying to say. And what I had said was, I am proud of the progress they had made, but I am not satisfied with the result. So I really want to be clear, like, yes, we're moving in the right direction. You guys are working hard. I acknowledge it. Like, let's keep it going. But let's not be satisfied that we went to an international tournament and got 8th, right?
Yeah.
And FNS echoed the similar thing that I was trying to communicate, and he said, he's like, 2 things will happen. He was like, we will continue to move forward, and we will progress and have great results, or we will get crushed. And he did not want to get crushed happen, and what happens? We play Immortals, who would be at the LAN, and we got crushed. You know, and we were very cognizant, like, this is a possibility, and why we lost has been identified and is being addressed. But it's important for the community to know, like, the team is not satisfied with that result. I'm not satisfied with the result.
None of us are satisfied with any losses. It's bananas that would ever even be a thing.
And for some reason, that is a belief.
Well, and like, I don't, because they don't know how it works.
Right.
They don't know that we're sitting here for hours every single day being like, what the heck do we do about this? But like, the notion to me that an esports team of this caliber doesn't care about results is actually bananas.
Yeah.
It's and I think both of us are actually insulted by that at some level. And that when I did a real soul search, that's one of the reasons why this podcast was created, was because that came as a result of a lot of emails and comments to me personally that were like, do you not care about winning? Do you not care about your guys after the LCS results? Like, do you not care about what's happening? And how can I respond to that if our storytelling isn't, yeah, we do care about that, and we're not showing the community that we do and how we do it, right? So I realized, at first I had that reaction where I got really angry at the community, and I'm like, what the hell? But then I was like, well, how can I possibly blame these guys? We're not telling them anything.
Yeah, and in what I'm going to write to the community echoes the same thing. I pretty much say, I don't blame any of you for coming to the assumptions that you are coming to, because it is our fault that we have not communicated effectively as to, like, what we're actually doing.
Yeah, it's something, you know, Andrew, he always says, our head cook, our headmaster, I call him the headmaster. It's an awesome title. I want that to stick. But the headmaster, Andrew, he always says, oh, I just lost it. I had it. He says, it's not you don't know what you don't know. We've been saying that a lot. He always says, shoot, what were we just talking about a second ago?
Talking about satisfied results in the community.
Yes, but he said, I lost it. Maybe it'll come back to me. Anyway, but yeah, I think, like, I feel like what's happening with the community is totally understandable. At the same time, I remembered the quote. he says common sense isn't so common.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like to us it would seem like, well, we're working for an esports team, and we're really taking this seriously. Where we're not just here for like, I guess that's another. You have to dispel the myths, but like, no one's getting paid an absurd amount of money at CLG.
No.
Nobody, including George, who takes a very minuscule amount from the company, if anything, the least out of any LCS or LCS or CS:GO owner that I know of. But like the feeling is that like for some reason the staff is sitting here like, yeah, we don't want to win.
Yeah.
There's no way that and no, especially with how competitive you are.
Yeah.
But I feel like I actually don't feel like I have that competitiveness like you do. I think like that's why you need to be in the position you are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I come from like the more like self-improvement side, but even from that side, the whole genesis of the self-improvement initiative in CLG is to eventually create the best competitors.
Right.
Because I think that a person who really wants it
Mm-hmm.
is going to eventually surpass everybody.
Yeah. Which is why you and I, to an extent, have a similar philosophies. How we go about that are different.
Yeah. But it complements.
Yeah, but they complement each other, and that's why when I'm recruiting people, and whether it be coaches, players, support staff, whoever it is, if they're not willing to grow, or they're not willing for me to push them and make them uncomfortable,
that's it.
I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Like, I really don't care if you're the #1 player in the world at your respective game, because you will not be the #1 player in the world
very
for
soon.
a very long time. And so I'm not going to take a 3-6 month shelf life on somebody. I want the 3-year shelf life on somebody or more, right? As we hopefully esport players can have longer careers and longevity. But really, it goes back to, and this is why Overwatch I think has been so successful and continues to make improvements, is like those are those guys, right? And we have more of those guys in the organization.
Yeah, well, more and more every day, because we're making decisions to get people like that out, honestly, that aren't, both at a staff level and at a, and I think...
I mean, I think we told us the other day, like, the attrition rate in my department is really high.
Yeah, but there's good attrition and bad attrition.
Right.
So there is almost no bad attrition in CLG, defined as people leaving the organization because they are upset or they don't like it, right? Yeah. And good attrition is you get someone out of the, I guess in the eyes of the beholders, it's like you get someone out of the company that is obviously either a negative contributor or not contributing.
Or not meeting standards of expectations.
Well, that's typically why we remove people.
Yeah.
But I feel like so that same thing, that same kind of cultural revolution happened at a staff level a year ago when I came in, because the organization looked really different at that point. And before we branched out into departments and we created the KPI system and we built all that, the structure of the company was like really random and chaotic, and there were not a whole lot of people that survived that transition. And like now that we're here, it's like a very different company. But the kind of like legacy of CLG, I think still paints the picture that like we're 4 dudes in a basement, like talking about gaming, right? And like in reality, like we have departments, we have directors, we have like I said, the KPI systems, key performance indicators, like a weekly system of tracking results at a staff level. You have a similar system you've implemented with coaches, right? Which I know we want to get into. Yeah. So it's really a different organization than it was even 6 months ago. But because George is still in it and remains to be and will always be in some form, the culture of like people who really love games. This is something he said to me the other day that I thought was really cool. Like the culture of people that really love games. Like that's, we're all sitting down, like we're trying to figure out like what is CLG, like what makes it different. And one of the things we come across, like every single person here loves gaming. I think you have people on other teams that have an obvious bias towards a certain game because they either grew up in it or because they just favor that team or whatever. But everybody on CLG plays Overwatch, plays League of Legends, plays CSGO. Like, they all know the scenes. And it's the only esports team I'll see where, like, we had the CS tournament going on last night, right? And there was a lot of different people from other teams just sitting there watching it.
Yeah.
That's a cultural thing that's really unique.
The
cool.
same with Smash. Like, so many
Yes.
people watch Smash.
Well, there's
Play
a special love for
Smash.
Smash in CLG.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree, and that's like why we're trying to do the LAN tournament too internally, is because
Is that ever gonna happen?
yeah, we had a date and then it had to change, but we're working on coming up with a new date. But like, it's actually really easy, as we were talking about it. Agreeing
Ping pong tournament.
and the ping pong tournament.
Yeah.
But like, agreeing on a game is kind of tough, but actually having games that pretty much everybody can play was really easy.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be fun though. Hopefully we live stream it so everybody can see.
We should. I'm a little bit worried about if Void and a cat. And is it going to be melee or is it going to be 4? Probably 4
Are you talking about for the
for the Smash tournament. Yeah.
Oh, we were going to
Internally.
do an Overwatch or League tournament. That was the LAN we were going to do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'm going to have...
Just with the organization?
Yeah.
Isn't that going to be incredibly slated towards whichever team? Like if it's like the Overwatch.
So
like,
if you have... So the way we're going to do it, you'll draft players,
okay.
and then you can only draft...
I didn't even know this. I have no idea this is happening.
Yeah, so you can only draft one player per team, so like only one Overwatch player can be on like any one team. And the game that
Sounds right.
Yeah, and the game that you play, you are going to be a coach. So we're going to rotate games. So we play the League, like Darshan would not play League, he'd be a coach for the League.
Oh.
And he would like coach his team. But then we play Overwatch, Darshan will play, but the Overwatch player would not be able to play Overwatch.
Is this your deal? Did you like
Yeah,
think this up? This is cool.
Collectively, I don't want to cooperate it. Collectively, we came up with it in the coaches meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. We didn't even talk about this. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so in the dining room, we'll have 6 computers back to back. So we play Overwatch, we need 6 computers, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna have back to back in a line down the dining room. So we'll move all those tables out, put in tables, 6 back to back, have a LAN party, stream it. Julia can do like Instagram Live, Facebook Live, like all that stuff.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So that came from the coaches meeting.
Yeah.
So tell me about coach meetings. I want to know. I think that's good. I want to know like more about the coaching stuff.
Yeah.
The structure, how you look at it. I think all that is really cool.
So coaches meetings. So first of all, my Mondays are 9 hours of meetings straight.
Yes, but you reaped what you sowed.
I know.
Yeah, you just recently did this. Was your last Monday this, or have you not had a Monday like that yet?
No, my Mondays are usually like around 5 to 6 hours of meetings.
Because that's every Monday for me.
Yeah.
I have KPI meetings, and I have at least, and now I have 7.
Oh yeah, 'cause you have
Right, because Kelsey and then Rickeh and Jack.
Yeah.
Though I usually don't see them on that day.
Mhm.
And so technically, no, it's I think it's 7 or 8. It's a lot, man.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
And then so that's like 5 to 6 hours with just coaches.
All Monday.
And then when you and I meet, it's like anywhere from an hour to 3 to 4.
Depending on how
crazy that was.
crazy the situation is, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, going back, so what we do on Mondays is we have a coaches meeting. So every coach in CLG is in the meeting, and the purpose of this meeting is for coaches to get direct feedback from each other, and it's pretty much a think tank of coaches, and they can bounce ideas off each other, kind of challenge each other too, which is good, and propose different ideas to help them in their respective games. So sometimes maybe the Counter-Strike coaches are doing something that the LCS team could benefit from, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe there's a challenge that a particular coach hasn't experienced and other coaches have, and they can provide feedback of like how they've addressed it. And so the way that I run the meeting is I really give freedom to the coaches to pretty much do whatever they want for about 30 to 45 minutes in that time. And it's...
What happens? Like?
Yeah, so it's really, I'll go around the room and I'm kind of like a moderator, but I really don't like do a whole lot. Well, the only thing I really do is I'll go around to each coach. I'll say, hey, what topics or questions do you have for the day? And then everybody lists them, and then I make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to address those specific topics. And what it kind of does too is it sets the tone as to, sometimes there's themes, right? So like I can tie certain coaches' questions into each other. So one of the themes that we ran into recently was because LCS was in playoffs, Overwatch was in tournaments, Counter-Strike was going to Ukraine. Like it was a very heavy time around playoffs and tournaments. And so there was a theme about like mindset and how do we get players to be competitive and to maintain a mindset throughout an entire playoff or tournament. And so there was a lot of good conversations that happened. And so I allowed the coaches to have the freedom to have discussions. And what I'll do is I'll take notes throughout the whole time. And at the very end, I'll kind of put all the pieces together and give them additional feedback that wasn't mentioned, and to help them really understand maybe different concepts that were trying to be explained by different coaches, and kind of elaborate it and to summarize everything so that they fully get it. And then what I'll also do is the last maybe 20 minutes or so, I will introduce a coaching concept to them, so that helps them develop as coaches. So I think
One you pre-prepared?
Yeah, so I pre-prepared it, and then I will go into it. And so I try to make it around topics that collectively all coaches could receive that kind of feedback or kind of learning points that teams are struggling with. So going back to like a couple of weeks ago when there was like a lot of playoffs tournaments, like I had something prepared specifically for that, and sure enough, a lot of the questions and comments and feedback was around that anyway. So it very much like complemented what they were doing. So for me, I really want our coaches to grow as well as our players, and that growth specific to coaches looks like understanding actually how to be a full coach, meaning there's a lot of different aspects and areas in coaching in esports that are required of a coach, but there's a lot of components that are missing in esports that a quote-unquote traditional coach would have. And so what I'm trying to do in the department and push CLG is I want us to be the forefront of the standards of what an esports team should look like as well as department. And so to really start that initiative, I have worked directly with the coaches because they have the most direct impact on players. And so if I can make something that you and I like to say, like a self-actualized coach, where like they're just like they got it all, man, all the skill sets, right? Like that's ideal. So this is something that I talked to the coaches about, and I've really said to them, like, I'm trying to push and grow you guys into areas of growth, and everybody's area of growth looks different, right? Like certain coaches are good at one aspect, some maybe are struggling in that same aspect, and so I work individually with them as well. And what I really want them to do though is be like an all-encompassing coach. They can handle in-game issues, they can handle out-of-game issues, they know how to manage, they know how to set goals, they know how to deal with player issues as they arise, and that's really going to give them a lot of power and authority over their team, even more so than they currently have, but also helps them make them a better coach, and they're also identifying issues within their team that they maybe otherwise wouldn't know how to identify or wouldn't know how to problem solve. And so I work really closely with the coaches right now, and that's going to even be amplified coming in the next couple of weeks. So that way they will get that direct feedback. And so really the idea and the ideal situation is that the coaches at CLG are so much better than everybody else's. Like that's like the ultimate thing. And I think people will start to catch on, and people are already recognizing certain people and certain names in the community.
Really? Within CLG?
Yeah, and I think it's largely because they're being pushed to grow and they're developing their skill set, and they themselves are willing to grow. And so if they are not willing to grow, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, if they're not willing to grow and to push themselves as a coach, they are not going to help the team be as best as they possibly can.
Yeah, of course.
So,
well, because of a concept that we've talked about a lot, right, which is how you show up as a coach makes such a huge difference to what the players actually do. And if you speak about the things that you want to do, and then you don't do them, then the players live much more by your example than they do by your actual words.
Right.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's at an organizational level too.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to like the basic concept of modeling behavior in CBT, right? Where you're just like, if you want somebody to act a certain way, you demonstrate it. And that's something I've been telling the coaches a lot lately in the past couple of weeks is we cannot set an expectation for the players if we ourselves don't meet like that minimum expectation. And really, for me, myself, I need to be held to the highest standard of that for my department. So I need to be doing it, because if I tell a coach to do something, but like, hey, Matt's not doing it, then it's going to happen.
You lose it. And then that's at the level that I work at, same thing, right? I mean, that's why I'm trying to be up earlier than anybody. I try to do everything that, like, grind, right, to show people that same thing. And I think the theme that you've been trying to focus on, right, accountability.
Yeah,
right?
Sure.
So talk about that a little bit,
Yeah, so accountability is huge. Essentially, for accountability for me is taking ownership of your own responsibilities, right? So if I'm responsible for something, and I don't follow through, I don't do it, I need to step up and I need to be accountable for my actions. I need to reap the repercussions. I need to acknowledge the people that I'm working with and make good by them, right? And so that could be either I tell them, like, hey, I screwed up, or, you know, I tell them, like, hey, it's not going to happen again, right? There's a kind of a lot of different ways that looks depending on the circumstances and who it's with. And so I recently did that with the entire LCS team. You know, I think there are...
Really?
Yeah.
You did it personally?
Uh-huh. Every player. And the coaching staff. I think there are things that...
As a result of playoffs?
As a result of playoffs, I think there's things that could have been better.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, right, obviously. On my end, and I think that could have been... I don't think I'm like a god or like Jesus or anything where it's like I could have done so much, like we would have not lost, right? But I think there are things throughout the split that could have been done to give more value to the team that are being addressed and will be fixed next split for sure.
Okay.
As a result of, as you mentioned earlier, like we do interviews, like post interviews at the split.
Yeah, the exit interviews. That was good. Kind of asking questions about what happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the sort of specifics about how the players felt? And did you also give exit interviews to the coaches?
No.
Or you one-on-one with them?
Yeah, I do one-on-ones with the coaches.
Deep. Yeah.
And so for the past now nearly 2 weeks, every day, almost every day, Tony and Plop and myself have met and addressed all sorts of issues, and not always issues too. I think it sounds bad. Like there's just tons of issues, which there are problems to be solved, but we're also to prepping for next split and bettering our system.
People really want to know about the LCS, but this is stick on that topic, even though it's a little bit more difficult. But the players feel awful, obviously, and they're it's so real for them, and it's so real for us. I think like but one of the things I guess that's a real positive that came from it, and this is something that you said, right, is that if that hadn't happened, and you imagine like the alternate timeline in like the movies where like you beat FlyQuest and like everyone's happy and like okay we're on our way to Brazil, to Vancouver and then to Brazil, we would not have done the soul searching we did.
No.
And we might not have come up with a lot of things that I think organizationally wide have actually or are leading already and going to lead to way greater things.
Yeah.
The whole communication issue has been buried. It's like the Necrons in Warhammer, like for a long time, like 40,000 years. You know, and it's like something that I've always, I guess, cursorily been aware of and not really known how to fix. I knew it had something to do with ownership too, and that accountability. I think that's so important because, and this is a weird thing about ownership we were talking about the other day, right? Where it's one of those things where you can do something so egregious or so bad, but if you just come out and you're like, okay guys, I totally screwed up, like, and you really own it, like you're not just like acting for the camera or whatever, but you're just saying like, I really did screw up, I own this, and I'm gonna try to get better. The level of forgiveness for that is crazy. Like I feel like in esports, like all the scandals and all the stuff that happens is because whenever it gets put on the team owner or whatever, they just immediately go like full defense. Like, I didn't tell that player that, like I didn't say that stuff. No, just be like, yeah, dude, like we screwed up. Like we said something really dumb, and it was really stupid. Like we're really sorry, and now we're gonna take accountability for that, and we're gonna move. And people will be like, okay, I can't attack that. You know, I can't like argue with that. I don't like what you did, but at least you're trying to improve as a person. I think there's like a fundamental human connection in that.
Yeah, I think as long as you're always trying to improve or better and not be defensive, then you're moving in a positive direction, right? Like so going back to my accountability, it's important for me to demonstrate that to the players and the coaches.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, then I don't expect my coaches to do that, and my coaches can't do that, then we have real big issues, and if my players can't do that, we have even bigger issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to get defensive and I would say, like, I put in all the resources in this team, I gave you everything
you needed to win, and you still couldn't do it.
Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Then that's like a really bad position for me to be in. And
it's not true.
And it's not true. And so what we are moving towards is to give more resources than have ever been provided to the LCS team before, and also to increase expectations as a result and keep accountability across all levels. Myself, coaches, players, right, the department as a whole, right? There's a lot of things I'm doing internally as well that help the accountability process. Everything from department goals that we've addressed to goal setting for each individual person, meetings that are structured and scheduled, right? Like there's a lot of different things that were kind of in place before, but need to be systemized, which they have been now. And really it's going to be a good structure and place for accountability to happen and for growth to happen. And as a result, the idea is that the team will grow and have better results. So we're talking about the LCS team.
We're talking about the LCS team, and everyone's going to think that was an edit, but really Matthew had to go to the bathroom.
Really bad.
Really bad.
I was holding it. So we talked about the Overwatch and how I picked them up.
That's terrible. But didn't I say we had to do it first? Just too much water.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway.
And I got a bottle of water here that I finished.
Gotcha. I think it's also a difficult issue. Maybe it was good that we took a small break there, but I'm going back in.
Okay.
Because it's just the number one thing that
people care about.
Yeah, it is. It's like I think, well, because the CS team and Overwatch are doing so well, and I do want to illustrate like the long game thinking, right? That esports is so. I think it causes people to be neurotic, in the sense that when you think when we lose, the world is ending. When we win, it's the best thing ever. And neither of those things, on their extremes, when you look at the long tail of building a great team and making an organization that consistently churns out top level athletes and has coaches that support those athletes.
Right.
In my opinion, and I wonder if you agree with this, because we haven't talked about this off air actually, the only reason you would look at a loss like that is to go fully introspective, deep dive into what's wrong and improve.
Yeah.
But this idea of like we should feel terrible as people, or that we are terrible as people, or that they are terrible as people, or even that any of the players that have been singled out for their performance, that is seen as like, as soon as someone messes up their play, and that 5-game series exemplify, and they didn't have a good day, like, that's seen as them being legitimately bad, right? Forever. Right. Like until they do something that of equal importance that then elevates them back up to the holiness, right? But that's not how it works. Like in the long game of things, players go up and down. I mean, they have times in their, especially in longer careers, where they're popping off and they're really getting after it, and other times where they're not.
Yeah.
And there are also, I think esports is at the point where it's so chaotic that there are days and weeks that are vastly different from other days and weeks. This is not to excuse the performance by any means, and not to suggest that we aren't really disappointed on a staff level and that they aren't really disappointed on a team level.
Yeah.
It is to say that I personally wish that people had an understanding of the long game, and some people do, where they're saying, like, CLG is working on this, and I think fundamental to something that we've always done is we've really tried to believe in people a lot and give them a lot of benefit of the doubt, as long as they are demonstrating to us internally that they are interested in growth. It's an ongoing theme of this, right? Like that, like as long as, and I felt that way too about staff, where I've had staff that have underperformed. I've had them not do the best they can, but because they were growth-centric, they signed up for classes, they learned new skills, they built themselves up, they tried harder, they stayed up a couple extra hours reading, right? And and same with a player, if I see them in that route, like I'll never forget, I'm gonna tell a story about this, that it was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was wandering around the house because I'm weird, and I like wander around the house sometimes and just like look at what's going on. Either really early in the morning because I usually get up really early, or really late. And I opened the door of the LCS room, which is typically closed these days. It used to be when they were in the main room they weren't, but now it's typically closed. Wish it wasn't, but like there was Darshan solo queuing. Nobody else in the room. It's dark. There he was, right? Notebooks out. He didn't even see me. He never even knows I saw him. Like,
Yeah.
And I just thought and like Darshan gets so much BS in the community. Like this guy's underperforming. Maybe he is, but the reality is he's trying every day. It's so hard, right? Like he's so into it, and I know that growth mindset will take a person to be the best, and whether people see it or not, in the short term, that will happen.
Yeah.
It is the nature of things. You put the work in, and you get it out eventually. But it's a lot longer than people want, and that's why most people aren't successful, because they don't want to put in all the hard work initially to get what they get out later. They only want that result then. Yeah.
So I know the instant critique the community will have.
Sure. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be something along the lines where, oh, so you're just tolerating this type of behavior in the meantime, and it's having a negative impact on the team and the finishes and things like that, right? So I guess for you, like, how long do you tolerate a player at that level? Maybe growth is happening, but it's not happening to either the rate or to the level that we actually need them to compete at the highest level.
Yeah, I like that because you turned it. That is it, and I think that I deserve that criticism.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if I know the answer to that question. First, because the answer never has a clear black and white, right? It's always really subjective. And I'm going to put my personal opinion on the record, and state that this isn't Counterlogic Gaming's policy. There's a reason why you're esports director, because I already identified that I don't do well in a lot of these things. But I personally believe that as long as a person is like truly motivated and really trying, that they deserve some kind of spot. There may be an instance where we need to bench a person, and that person is still on the sub roster or still trying. But and I'm talking about a person who's really coming to you and saying, "What do I do better?
Right.
How do I get better?" And they're putting in all the effort. But I guess a part of me doesn't ever want to believe that someone isn't capable if they're really trying. I acknowledge that reality, and that there may be people that are just not good enough.
Yeah.
But I also, and this is something that I know is going to, like, this is one of those things that people will like reference for like years, but like I've told you this before, right? I don't believe in talent. And like, it's gonna like, everyone's gonna be like, whoa! They're gonna flip out, but like, I don't believe in talent. I think that everything is grown. It's a basis of your upbringing, of the training that you put in, of your mindset, and I think that grows a person into the athlete that they're going to be. Now, in a physical sense, there is no doubt that a taller basketball player has an advantage, or volleyball player, and that a bigger lineman in football is going to be a more effective athlete. But in esports, much less like chess, I think that your propensity to actually build and develop yourself is if not, it's like 90 to 95% of the battle. That's why I'm not making roster decisions, is because I also accept that opinion is potentially ludicrous. But I that's my opinion. Like, I really don't think talent exists. Yeah. I know you don't. I know you and George don't agree too, right? And that's good.
It's a good thing why you don't make roster decisions.
Yeah. And I never will, for anyone that's listening. Yeah, there's better people for that. That does apply at a staff level too.
I think it's more applicable and I'll say safer philosophy to exercise at a staff level than it is a player level.
Well, that's probably why I do what I do.
Right.
It's probably why I'm not head coach of some team. Is because, at a staff level, you're dealing more with direct skills.
Right.
So something like search engine optimization or graphics design or something. And if you have a person that's working on that every day to try to improve, and they're reading the books, and they're going to the classes, and they're really trying, then they're gonna get better at that, and then that's gonna reflect in their work, and a lot of like what you do at a staff level is the hard work that you put in.
Mm-hmm.
And then at a player level, it is different, and I don't think I've ever understood that at a great level. At Dignitas, that like we figured out pretty quickly, because I actually did LCS coaching for a while.
You did?
Yeah, and it was a little bit of a joke. Okay, it was sort of real though. But like right away, I hired a Korean coach who did the actual in-game stuff, because I knew I couldn't tell them like, here's where you go on Dragon, like this is the kind of stuff, like that. It's just there's no way, right?
Yeah.
But I also knew that I didn't have the ability to make great decisions around the players, because I didn't see the angles that someone like you sees, or someone like George sees. So George is like very good at it because he was a player, right? So he can see it immediately, but he also has incredible EQ. But sitting here and pretending to the community or to anybody that I'm good at everything is BS. And I think it's perfectly fine to be bad at something like that, as long as I don't control the decision making in it, right?
Yeah.
you need to, and that happened with content too. Storytelling, right? We just went over that, where we've had a long history of CLG being a team that didn't do content well. I don't think we've told in an emotional and driven narrative that we need to do that connects our supporters with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that was because I don't understand those things. And I have my own YouTube channel with 50 views, like, because it gets 50 views a video. This is a little bit better than 50 views. But it's just like, it's self-improvement content, me sitting behind a desk. Like, it's good stuff, but it's not interesting and engaging. It doesn't drive people home, which I think is literally what happened to CLG. We produce good stuff, interesting gameplay, highlights, stuff like that. But it's not something that drives you home. It's like why you should care about these people and why it matters. So I had to hire people that get that. And so we don't have to be good at everything, right? But I also do want to make it clear that I don't think that, I don't know, like, do you think that weaknesses at our level have caused the LCS results? To some degree they must have, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be... Yeah, I believe, like, as a leader I have to take responsibility.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's why, like we referenced earlier today, is that there are so many changes that are occurring internally to address
what
issues.
happened.
Yeah. Because like you and I talked about, like a day or two after we lost, or even the night of, it might have been. No, it was a day or two after. The changes in my department and expectations and all these different things that were already at a high standard for esports would not have increased, or systems wouldn't be put into place if we had kept winning throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it would not have yielded a positive long-term result for us.
Yeah.
And as a result of this, the silver lining in the whole thing is that things are better internally, and as a result, it's going to produce better results.
Well, I think that loss would have been inevitable, if not then at some other point, as long as those systemic issues existed.
I agree, but I think it would have been an easier pill to swallow, because I believe if we won
the way we lost was savage.
The way we lost sucked.
Yeah.
And then if we would have lost to TSM the next weekend, who I believe we would have played, because they're like the number 1 seed and everything, the community would kind of give us a little more.
But we may not have done the same post-mortem. Like,
that's what I'm saying.
The degree of the blow was proportionate to the amount of post-mortem we did. And people might think on the outside, like, well, why can't you just do those post-mortems when you're successful? And it's so hard.
Because here's the problem, right? I've shared this before. Winning solves problems. And it doesn't really solve problems. But what happens, though, is issues that exist get covered up. Because nobody cares about it. There's not an issue. Well, okay, so so-and-so showed up to me and was like, who cares? We're undefeated. Right? You know, hey, you know, this coach didn't provide me my scouting report. That's okay, we're undefeated.
Yeah. It's the small details that get lost.
Yeah, and then when you have a FlyQuest loss, then what it challenges you to do is like, okay, well, where did we screw up? Where could we improve? right? And that's really hard to maintain. I don't want to toot my own horn, but like I can do it, but it's hard to get a buy-in from everybody if is the system currently that exists works, right? But it really doesn't work. There's just areas that can improve upon, right?
Yeah.
So we're winning. I come in, I try to like change something. Well, why would we do that? We're winning. We don't want to screw it up, right? And you get this resistance to change, which is like a whole other thing I can go on about. But you get resistance to change, especially when things are perceived to be working well, right? But it's way easier. Some of the conversations I've had the past couple of weeks, I probably wouldn't have been able to have if we were playing in the finals in Vancouver, right? Because people will be like, well, this guy's crazy. Why is he bringing this up? Well, because it's an issue, right? And it's not perceived as an issue until you feel the consequences of the issue. And so this idea that winning solves problems and winning is something that I believe in, because I've seen it happen so many times in my own personal playing career and coaching and stuff, that it's like really, really hard to implement. You have to have a core group of people that actually believe in it. And again, like, not to like toot on Overwatch too much, but like I can do with Overwatch.
Yep.
Right? Because like all the guys on the coach are
people
constantly wanting to improve.
Yes.
Even though they are improving and getting better results each time. Like I can come in there at any time and say, hey guys, like you guys need to step it up.
Well, because I think if you get to a certain level of actualization, a really bad scrim result can produce that outcome.
Yeah.
Where you can be like, okay, this is indicative of systemic issues that we need to solve. And it doesn't take a loss to FlyQuest like that to actually get there.
So I think it's important because the community probably cares about like the LCS team and to like
they care about all. I mean, they care. Anybody that's listening to this cares about CLG as a whole.
Yeah,
especially at this point.
Right.
If you're
still listening.
Yeah, if you're an hour and a half in, then you're doing well. Thank you.
Well, I guess be more specific is they want to kind of know like what's the state of affairs of LCS.
Absolutely.
Like I think that's what we really haven't touched upon because we've kind of touched upon other teams. There have been very good conversations with the LCS team, both with players and coaches, as to what actually needs to change and what stepping it up really means. And there is a drive and an understanding with the LCS team right now that hasn't existed since I've been here. Maybe it's existed in the past before, but at least in my tenure here, I feel like they finally get it.
Okay.
Like they actually know like every detail, every single thing we do is actually important. And that is what I am trying to capitalize on right now and to maintain that fire and that drive. And part of that is why in the LCS room 24/7 is playing the loss to FlyQuest. Because we cannot forget how bad we feel right now. Like it still bothers me. Like for the 2 days after, like I was not sleeping well and like I was like, it just like it's a problem, right? Like we cannot, no disrespect to FlyQuest, but like we should not have lost to FlyQuest, especially when we're up 2-0 like that, right? And
well, for a ton of reasons.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. But
you're right.
It's a problem, but like we cannot forget that loss, and we need to take what is a negative situation and take all these negative emotions and feelings and use them as a motivation to get better and to put in the extra hard work, because the way we feel right now, I can speak for myself, I never want to feel this way again while I'm a part of CLG. Like it is an awful feeling.
It's terrible.
It's embarrassing. Like it's all sorts of things.
I think we will feel this way. I think that inevitably esports is this really up and down thing. But I completely agree with you. Like I don't want this to exist. Like it's just I would remember these feelings like going back from a really bad loss with Dignitas in the car in the shuttle. Have you been on one of those with CLG? Yeah. Like a bad loss. It's awful.
Nobody talks. Nobody says anything.
The energy is abysmal. It doesn't matter what team you're on.
Yeah.
I've done it with several teams, and when you're in that shuttle, you don't even want to make the conversation. Like you're pissed off too. You know, like
when we drove back from the FlyQuest loss, I was actually driving.
Oh man.
And I literally did not say a single word to anybody. I was in my head the whole time. I was like, how do I fix this? Like, it was, yeah, and nobody was talking to each other.
Yeah.
And it was stale. Stale is like actually a good word.
It is, yeah. It's like dead air. It's a totally different feel too when a good victory happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just, we just can't feel that way. And I think too,
Yeah, we
like,
can't.
I agree with you. I don't want to agree with you, but the realistic part of like the person that's been in sports forever and understands like how it actually works. Like, we will feel this way again, but I can't believe in that and know like that's a possibility, because I don't want that to be okay with me at any point.
I agree. Yeah.
And I'm gonna do everything in my power to not have this happen again, but the reality is it's so hard in any professional sport, whether it be esports, traditional sports, to maintain being at the top all the time. You look at like historic franchises like the Lakers, right? Most NBA championships in the whole league, I think they have 18, if I'm not mistaken. But the past, 3-4 years, they've been the bottom 3 in the league, right? And then like a franchise like that, and there's a lot of reasons why they are the way they are, but like, it proves that like it's really hard, right? Celtics the same way. I think Celtics have 17 championships, second best in the NBA. This year, like, they've stepped up, but like they were at the bottom for a little while too, as of late, right? And so you see this all the time, but in my role and position, like, I can't believe in that reality, and I don't want to believe in that reality that it might happen. But I guess the reason I bring it up though is I think it's important for the community to actually really understand like how hard it is to maintain a competitive team at the top, not only with the same roster, but like even making changes too. Like, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll get back to the top. And
sometimes it's the opposite. Like, sometimes it creates more issues, because even when you fundamentally change one player on a team of 5, it just has vast.
It does.
Yeah, it has vast implications, especially if that person is like an IGL or a controller of some kind, or even outspoken more than like, it can really add a lot.
For sure, and
or
so
subtract a lot.
And I think, to be honest, like our fan base has been a little spoiled. I think we're kind of like the Lakers fan base, where like I'm a huge Lakers fan, where it's like I'm pissed at the org right now.
Yeah.
Like that we are like the Lakers are in the position that they're in.
Yeah.
I have since taken this position, have way more empathy, like understand
how
hard it is,
yeah.
but it's like the Lakers fans like don't tolerate not being in the playoffs, like not competing for a championship, and I feel like that's similar to CLG fans because
maybe that's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, because I think like fans having really high expectations of the team is actually indicative of us being a premier team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they wouldn't, like, if they were like, yeah, this team should be. Yeah. This team is doing bad and they are bad. Well, okay.
And I'm not asking the community to give us a pass for this playoff. Like, that's not what I'm asking at all.
Don't worry, they won't.
Yeah. Yeah. What I am saying though is I actually really like it, and I can resonate with them as to why they feel the way they do. In the CPU magazine interview that I did, they talked about our fan base and like how important it is, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but along the lines of like fan base is really important. And the one thing that I actually do like, as bad as it feels though, is the accountability part. So go back to the word accountability. I think our community keeps us accountable. Actually, no, I don't think. I know they keep us accountable.
They do, yeah.
And that is like very, very.
And the only way they would do that is if they really cared.
Right.
Which is when I got a lot of emails after the playoffs, they were mostly about the lack of changes that are correctly perceived by the community on the LCS team. Why have you not made roster changes? Why have you not made these things happen? And because they were comparing us to TSM when they lost to CLG.
Right.
They cut 4 people, and they completely restructured their team. When C9 lost, they completely restructured their team. So why are you guys why is this not happening? Why are you guys not making these systemic changes? That they're doing that. And they were really mad about it, right? They're cursing. They're like, they're telling I'm the worst CEO ever, like all this stuff, right? Not because they're a bunch of assholes, but because like a person that is going to take the time to write a post like that, they care so much.
Yeah.
And they care so much that they're like we should be grateful that we have fans like that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that we have people that are actually going to like go that hard And that's why I individually emailed those people, and I'm just like, tell me what's up. And I didn't get, the reason I bring that up is not like, oh, Moises is a cool person who like emails people. No, like when I got those emails back, they weren't, not a single one was troll post. It wasn't like, you bitch. It was all like a detailed analysis, some of which I forwarded to you, by the way, like that are like, this is why I think this happened. Here are some of the changes, and there's like all really good data.
Yeah.
That like to have fans like that, that's the legacy.
Yeah.
That's the 6-7 year franchise that CLG is.
Yeah.
No one expects that. Even Immortals that had like an incredible run.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in their first bit, they went 18, 17, 1, so 18-0. They aced the split, didn't they? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure they didn't drop a game until playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure that happened. Someone correct me or whatever, but it came close.
Yeah.
And there is still not that even that kind of showing. That was the first time they were ever on the court,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, even that kind of showing didn't create that expectation from Immortals fans, in my opinion. It did. Immortals fans are not expecting them to be number one all the time.
Yeah.
That expectation is at CLG because of the legacy that created, because of MSG, because of MSI,
mm-hmm.
because of the year history, and because of what Hotshot has built and what we've built. And I never want to lose that.
No, absolutely.
I hope those fans keep holding us accountable, and I hope I still get those troll emails. If you want to call me any name in the book, just have a good detailed analysis with it, and thumbs up.
Yeah, I don't mind. And I'm writing this too, and like the letter that I'm putting out to the community.
You told them. That's it.
It's like I don't mind the
secrets out, boys.
Yeah.
He's writing a letter.
I don't mind.
A Dunzo manifesto.
Yeah, right. The criticism and everything is totally fine. Like, I don't mind any of that. Like, I think it's all very valid and warranted, and especially given the fact that we don't give the fan base a lot to work off of, and they just come to assumptions based on what little to none that we provide.
That is completely the worst thing I've done here so far. That's what I'm really trying to improve. That's why we're here. Yeah.
But what's important about that, as long as it's like, it goes back to like the idea of like constructive criticism, right? Like, as long as like it's valid and it has validity to it, totally cool. Like, I'm down with it. If it's just you venting and like it has like no value to me, like, I can speak for myself, and I know this for players and staff. Anybody that checks our Reddit is like, they'll just skim right over it, because it's an emotional response. Which is fine, and we can have emotional response, emotional discussions, but like it needs to be productive at the same time. If a fan truly is trying to give feedback, I would say like that's a good approach where you will actually be listened to.
The support matters too.
Yeah.
And the reality is that I told the LCS players last year to try not to read our League of Legends. Yeah. And not a single one listened to me. And they never will.
Yeah. Every
player reads those threads.
Mm-hmm.
Every staff member reads those threads. And they internalize some of it too, and some internalize it a lot more than others. And when someone posts a supportive post, because we did get a few, that mattered a lot too.
Mm-hmm. When
people actually came out and said, "I'm still with these guys. Like, I think they can do it." And a lot of people in the community did that, despite the lack of information. Like, they had no information they had no reason to believe that is the case.
That's called faith.
Yeah, exactly. That's the true faith, man. They kept it because it's by actual definition.
They are faith.
It's faith. Yeah. You have absolutely no reason to believe that this is happening, but it's gonna happen.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was a good thing. And yeah, overall, I don't think I'd change much about our community. I'd add more people to it, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, there's something really important on LCS that I wanted to touch upon. Oh, let's debunk the friends myth.
Oh.
Can we talk about this?
Yeah. Oh, of course. I'm so down.
Okay.
Yeah.
This will be in the letter too.
We're not friends. We all hate each other. No. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. Okay, but we have to explain what the friends myth is first. So.
I don't even know how to explain
it.
I don't know where it generated from. Like, I know nothing about it other than like it exists out there.
I got this.
Okay,
all right.
please do.
The friends thing started with me, as things often do, and I made a cultural initiative. I saw the way that the company works, like the way that the company works internally and spends time together, is really unique for esports teams, because I've been on a lot of esports teams and nothing works this way. And by this way, I mean people play ping pong together at night. People play board games every night. People from other teams talk to other teams. We have a whole nexus of 6, 7 houses in this area that are all within 5 minutes of each other.
Yeah, we have 5. So we have 6 total. 5 that are with a mile or less from the main campus.
Right, and the main campus hosts Andrew and Jordan, who cook 3 meals a day, so that everybody congregates around food. So this is almost like a tribe, in that right, like in that sense, like and I saw that earlier in 2016, and I said, this is kind of like a family, and that's really cool. And so I said, well, what if we brought that out to fans and tried to show what kind of a family this is, right? And like how that unique aspect. But what it didn't, the component it didn't have was the content.
Yeah.
So we didn't. So what people assumed was it was like a hippie commune of like a bunch of friends that just care, like they just like each other and play games to play games, and they kind of just like meshed into an organization.
Yeah.
You know, like the blob, the amoeba came together, and it kind of became like it just became a thing, instead of like an actual deliberate effort to create a serious group of competitors with the aspect of friendship and family and having that like as a kind of byproduct. Mm-hmm. They thought that was the main deal, right? Yeah. So the family narrative started there, and I pushed it internally, which then appeared in some of our social media and appeared in some of our outward-facing stuff. Then Stixay, Trevor, did an interview. I think this was a big, Chris thinks this was a big factor, our community director, that he said, yeah, it feels like a family. And then everybody in combination with that attached that meaning to it, and everybody started to believe that this was sort of a group of friends that Hotshot started, that he keeps them together because he likes the guys. And to be clear, like a lot of people still believe that Hotshot has direct roster control. Like that he completely makes those decisions, and he alone.
Well, and this goes back to the issue.
We didn't tell them anything differently. Yeah, exactly. So that is how it was some years ago, and then there's a point in time where Hotshot and I talked about roster control, and then Hotshot, I, and you talked about roster control to the point of where it now should be, where it's like you in combination with the coaches have roster control.
Yeah.
And I think with the LCS team, you would still get some George, just because that's how it is. But he contributes a really good view.
Yeah. So, and so the community knows, like, I'll consult with him. Like at the end of the day,
nothing's getting past George.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing. Yeah. Like any big decision in the company, I bring to him too.
Yeah.
But and that's also, by the way, because we legit value his opinion.
Of course, yeah.
It's not just because he's the owner, it's because he actually has good insight.
It'd be foolish for me to make a roster change without ever talking to George or getting his opinion.
It'd be crazy. Yeah, it'd be crazy. I mean, he has more context than all of us combined. So this friendship thing started. It began. I'm so glad you brought this to the fore, because it began there. It was a result of me trying to push a rather silly narrative without driving content in the correct way.
Yeah.
That should have shown that we are at our forefront competitors, but we really have a unique thing going here, and this community is something really special. Mm-hmm. And I wanted people to hone in on that, but especially when you take a hard loss, it's really easy to be like, well, this is like they're all a bunch of group of friends, like they're just chilling, so of course like. And we didn't do any content that exemplified the hours and the nights that they stay up, and like the amount, like Tony, like the amount of work that like he puts in, and Plop, and you, right, like the sleepless nights, like literally the amount of nights that you sat in this office and your wife is calling. And you might want to edit this, but I guess the sure wasn't. But your wife is calling, and you're just like, hey, I'm here, I'm getting after, and you're legitimately just here, concerned about this issue, right? The amount of times that George has knocked on my door at 2 a.m. and been like, we got to fix this, right? Yeah. Like that is the story we never told. So that's why we can't expect the community to expect anything different. But that said, that's the origin of the myth.
Right.
And now, if you want to impact it, yeah.
So Okay, so let's talk about the funnel system again, real quick, right?
Julia's funnel system?
No, not Julia's.
Okay.
Like, stuff comes from me, then the coaches, then the players, right?
Oh, okay.
So, because the players don't have roster control, it's really silly for a reporter to go to a player and ask, hey, why was this team kept together?
Yeah.
How would the player possibly know? So I don't blame Trevor at all for saying, like, alluding to the fact that we stay together because we're friends, right? And then that narrative takes off and so on and so forth. However, Trevor doesn't know why the team was kept together, and Trevor doesn't know what has happened or discussions happened or what possible changes were discussed and like all that kind of stuff, right? So if people really want to know the answers to those questions, like, they should be directed to me because I'm the one that is in control of it, right?
Absolutely.
So,
or at the very least, Tony or something.
Yeah, and then, so it goes back to clearly state to the community, the reason why the roster stayed the same is not because of friends. There are other things that played into that decision that maybe in time will get discussed at a later date, but because of the roster currently being together, like, it's inappropriate to kind of talk about it at this time.
Sure. And they will be discussed later.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There will be a time.
So
time heals all wounds.
Anyways, with that being said, like, I just think it's really important because when I go through our subreddit and I see like comments about like, oh, they're all friends, like, trying to keep them together and like all this stuff, and like, there's very few things in our subreddit that kind of bother me.
That's one of them. Yeah.
That would be one of them. And then like, I honestly think it's kind of comical when people talk about decisions that CLG is going to make that actually involve like decisions I would make, but they're like,
no idea.
They're like not even close. Like the fact that we were picking up a Brazilian CS:GO team, like that was funny. I was like, oh cool, I didn't know I was picking up Brazilian CS:GO team. Like, that's good. I'm glad that I learned that. So.
Well, there is like just rampant speculation sometimes, and
that's fine.
And that's fine. Yeah. I mean, it's when it becomes a meme.
Yeah.
I guess, and the friendship family thing became a meme, and that's where it got a little bit toxic.
Yeah.
And it's. I think there really was this like perception that because I come from like I have a lot of like positivity associated with what I do because I'm in the science of happiness and self-improvement. I really care about that stuff. And George is kind of just a laid-back, chill guy. So that combination was like, you know, this group of hippies is running this thing into the ground, you know, that type of that. I could. The problem is I could totally see where that came from and how it propagated even, right? It's all in storytelling.
Yeah.
And we just don't tell good stories at CLG. And it's the number. So for my department, right, that's the number one thing I'm focusing on. Yeah. Is how do we tell more engaging, more transparent, and more in-depth stories about our players, about our staff, and about what's going on.
And the thing about it is we have really good stories to tell.
Exactly. Yeah. We have incredible stories, and that. If people actually saw the organization like we see it, it would be really cool.
Yeah.
But it's all my fault when that's not happening. And so since then, like, what have we done? Like we hired 3 video editors on site for respective teams, and that's why you're starting to see things like meta draft, and that's why you're starting to see things like top plays. And I still don't think that was like 3 weeks ago. So I still don't think that a lot of the directives that I had for content were right, and I don't think that people were interested in seeing like gameplay highlights are cool for social media, and they're good to post on. Like I think our most successful video ever was a Trevor's pentakill.
Okay.
But successful in terms of views.
Right.
Not that, but that's not the only performance indicator. Mm-hmm. There also has to be like engagement. Yeah. Well, I was talking about this the other day. There's this nebulous cloud of like knowledge in esports that's like the feel of the brand, like the feel of what's happening at CLG, and it's there's all these things that go into that mixing pot and kind of come together into like the stew that comes out, right?
Yeah.
And we were not doing enough content about telling actual player stories and driving home narratives that like who is Afromo?
Yeah.
Like who is Darshan? Who is Miso? Who are these guys and what do they care about? And telling that story is in a video narrative, and also this podcast, I think, will evolve to bringing in players and talking about those deep dives. I don't think we can do it with everybody, but I think we can get some really interesting stories out there. And having the organization think at every level about how we tell these stories of all of our people is so important to me right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I don't know how long I've been doing this now, but there's like so much more to talk about too that we could get into, maybe in like future podcasts. Like we haven't talked about Smashers, we haven't talked about CLG Black and their role to the LCS team.
Well, what happened was exactly what I hoped was going to happen, which is that we started on one topic we wrote down, and then we completely, which is great, But we'll do one of these once a week, man. We can come on all the time, So, I don't know what's our time. I think we're still good for a bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Well, let's pick out another one if you're still good.
Yeah, I just need to get a snack.
You want to eat? Yeah. You want to break for a bit?
Yeah, I was gonna grab something inside and then bring it back.
Let's do it. Yeah. Cool. So we were talking about the LCS team. I think we covered it pretty well. I think like what's missing in that though is the general perception of like, well, it's crazy. Like the general pen just like flew up. General perception of how we run the day to day, how the day to day is run, and like who's helping with it. What do people do? I think people like have like a kind of like 30,000 foot overview.
Yeah.
But I love how people call it that because like if you ever like go skydiving, you can't see anything at 30,000 feet. Like, it just looks like a bunch of squares. So that's basically what we have is like we have squares. You have the Andrew square, right? The Matthew square. That's gotten a lot better, right? Julia square. What like? How do the players? What would you want people to know?
I think there's a lot of people behind the scenes that don't get recognition.
Yeah.
Which is important to me. Not a person of like stature or anything like that, or like I need to be like credited with everything, but I do like to acknowledge credit where credit is due. So currently support staff for teams, now every team looks different, every team has different support staff, but all players do have access to our 2 cooks and our physical therapist. So we have Jordan and Andrew that cook 3 meals a day, and they work with Matthew Hugh, who is the physical therapist, who is here 3 days a week, and together they work on like nutrition and making sure that meals are sufficient for players and giving them the proper nutrition and everything like that, so they can perform at a high level. And then Andrew and Jordan will also accommodate for teams for when they have tournaments. So Overwatch has been doing a lot of qualifiers and in tournaments lately. So they'll do like meal prep for them, or Jordan, I know, actually physically drove over the dinners to the Overwatch house.
Yeah, he did. As like early as like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Like when they had that major tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so they played. I watched it all the way to like 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
So like, the players don't get to do what they need to do if they don't have these people doing their jobs, right? Like they don't get to fully focus on the game.
Yeah. Miso told me that today, by the way.
Yeah.
He was literally like, all we do is play the game.
Yep.
Which is, but not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Actually, like that's exactly what we should do to become the best competitors.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's, again, goes back to like, if I gave them the system and the resources to fully focus,
yeah.
all the game, sorry. Then they continue to grow, right? And so these people are the ones that are behind the scenes that allow that to happen, right? We also have analysts on most every team. Some teams have player development coaches. I'm a resource as well for players and coaches.
Yeah.
And then also too, we have other directors that help the players as well in different regards. So Julia with social media, Chris helps them understanding like community responses and things that the community cares about. John helps them with like activations and different things business related.
Yeah, John Spire from DX Racer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Also helps all of our sponsorships, helps a lot of the sales initiatives, and does a lot of deep work with me on actually getting people's paychecks made possible, and then the guy that actually gets the paychecks, of course, and then Brian is the ultimate like actually everything doesn't work without this guy, but nobody knows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I told him, I said, your job is just like the mailman, right? Like, you always expect the mail to show up Monday through Saturday, And the only time, you never really get thanked as the mailman, but you only get yelled at when your mail doesn't show up or goes to the wrong house.
Yeah.
And that's Brian, right?
It is.
Where it's like the internet goes down, Brian, where are you? You know?
It's also that if the mail doesn't show up for several days at a time, there is a serious apocalyptic type event. And that's the same type of thing with Brian.
Yeah. Or like the internet's down for like 30 minutes, like the whole company shuts down for like 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so, so anyway, Brian does a lot, gives us our paychecks, which is always you always want to be nice to that guy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, so there's like a lot of people behind the scenes. Obviously, some people have more in the day-to-day role with players than others.
Yeah.
But everybody's an important part of the system.
Mm-hmm. Well, particularly, Andrew and Jordan are interesting cases, right? Because they are effectively the kind of beekeepers. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, they not only do all the food, but they also... If we need an office mate or we need so cool note about CLG's compound actually. Actually, this is one of those things we kind of take for granted. We can do anything to this place.
That's true.
Yeah, so like we can knock down walls, which we've done. We can build walls, which we've done for Jake's room. We built a brand new wall for that place, and it actually became a cool pad where he can stream and stuff. And we frequently have these kind of home improvement projects that go on, right? And I think our audience is too dated for Tim the Toolman, so
that's not good.
Yeah, do you remember him?
Of course.
Home Improvement.
Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, this is back when TV was a thing, but it's that kind of feel where it's like there's always something going up, always something being built. The newest thing is the conference room, right? So there's now a conference room where people can have conversations, which is one of those things that no one knew that they needed it until we did. Yeah, and then there's a garden. That's actually something I'm really excited about.
Is the garden?
The garden, yeah, it's cool. Like there's it's like a little box on our grass lawn, and it has basil and it has herbs that we're actually going to use to cook. You can put it in tea. Yeah. It's going to be amazing. Yeah. Bigly. it's gonna be good, and that's exciting. But it's just like small. The small things are the big things, right? The net that Double Whiff cut his hand on
has been fixed.
Yeah, that got fixed, and there's now a brand new like actual basketball net. It's not a chain, and there's a new ping pong table that Brian rolled from his house because he lives like 2 minutes down the street.
Literally walked down the street
with the ping pong table,
pushing a ping pong table
at 2 a.m.
to 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, yeah.
And the good part about this story too, he told me, is that cops drove by him. And I thought it was super surprising that at 2 o'clock in the morning, you see somebody pushing a ping pong table, and you're like a cop. Like, you probably would want to roll.
It's Los Angeles, dude.
I know, but it's still weird.
Okay, I got a story for you. So my dad, he went to Berkeley, and they had this thing they did so Berkeley, the surrounding area in the city, they had this thing they did where they would walk around every night with a barber pole. This is his fraternity that did this. Like one of those old school red and white, swirly barber poles. Walk around. And then they would walk around in the middle of the night with this barber pole. And the cops would stop them, like, eventually. And they were like, why do you guys have this? And they said, no, like, we bought this, we ordered it, and here's the receipt and the invoice. And the cops were like, oh, okay. They bought it, right? And they did this for about a month. Like they're walking around every night with this barber pole. And they just thought it was just like these college kids, whatever, right? Month and a half passes. These guys doing it every night, right? The next night, every barber pole in the city is gone. They took it, every one of them, and nobody said a thing because they had conditioned the cops to actually, like I feel like the police's job in Los Angeles is so crazy that there's no way that like there's an Asian guy pulling a ping pong table down the corner at 2 a.m. like, why not?
Just let it go.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Like.
That's funny. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
But anyways, like, it goes back to like things internally that goes back to like the community, right? Like I said, the team didn't stay together because of the friends thing, but they're friends, right? Like that part exists. That's like not the primary reason, but like
they'll go out to dinner with each other. They're actually a lot more friends than a lot of the other esports teams I've worked with or seen. In the sense that like it's actually pretty, and we're so insulated at CLG. This culture existing at CLG is like this. I only remember this from other teams I was on. there are actually players that will not talk to other players on the same team. That's not uncommon.
That's weird.
I guarantee you that's happening with over half of the LCS teams.
So weird.
Yeah. Like players that will not talk to other players.
Yeah.
But there is not a single, there's not a single team in CLG where that's true.
Yeah.
There may be periods of time, like there might be like a day or two where someone gets really mad, and then they're like, I'm done, but that it never lasts. And then I think it's because of the positive coaching structure, which just nails that. Like they'll be on that super fast.
Yeah.
If two people aren't talking, why aren't you talking? Sit down, work it out, and then that works.
Mm-hmm.
It works. It actually works. Yeah. And that that actually permeates the whole organization, right? Because I'll have those one-on-ones with people every week.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, what's going on? And like the minute that, because I've told you this before, right? My philosophy on toxicity is that the idea of you can have a lot of things happening in your organization. You can have negativity. But there's a certain like toxicity. The idea that people are just against the organization. Like they're pushing a boulder uphill. They hate it. Like things are really wrong. They can't get better. That's the key indicator, right? When that happens, you need to nail that like right away, or that person's got to be out.
Yeah.
And so toxicity is something that like I actually have a radar for, and I will like hunt the halls and then go into offices and just feel where people are at. And like if I feel like something's off, pull that person in a room and be like, how can I help you?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of service can I do? And that's like Andrew and I, like, right, going back to like, I think Andrew and Jordan, they experience a lot of the house.
Yeah.
And so we have weekly meetings just to catch up with like what's going on. And it'll be weird stuff. Like there's too much of this in the food. We see too much of this meat. It'd be stuff like that, right? But it's like these small things are the little things, where like the little things are the big things, where like you have that slight improvement to the basketball net, that nice little improvement to the garden, putting the trash can over there. Do our trash cans still have TSM and liquid on them, by the way? Does that still happen?
I don't think so.
Okay, you might want to take a note for that later. We had that before.
Just the brick.
The brick had it.
Yeah.
Well, everyone knows about the brick.
Yeah,
Cindy? Yeah. We used to have our trash cans with TSM on them.
Really?
Yes. I thought it was a good idea. Someone printed it out. I think that was, I don't remember what happened there. And like, but yeah, that was the case. The original brick had liquid and TSM paint on it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you remember the two big black trash cans in the center of the kitchen?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they had TSM and liquid on them.
I don't have them now. I would have definitely seen that.
Yeah, that's true. There must be new trash cans. We'll get that fixed.
Nice.
Yeah. gotta talk to Andrew about that. So overall, I think the organization is very concerned with toxicity, which creates the space for that sort of like friendship and that perception to exist.
Yeah, of course.
But like I think that it's true, but only dangerous when it's like equated with complacency, which is not the case.
Yeah, you either step up or step out.
Yeah.
Like that's the reality of it.
Yeah, and friends or not, I mean, we are in honestly what is probably this day and age's most competitive industry, or it soon will be if we're not already there. There's tech and there's industry and there's stuff that's going on there, but this is a real different type of competition where you've got 10 to 15 teams that are just constantly dealing with savage losses and trying as hard as they can to be at the top. And we don't really have any owners right now. I think this will change, but we don't have anybody right now that really wants to lose or is happy with the like. Yeah. That sounds obvious. Again, common sense not so common. Yeah. But like, you say, why would somebody? But you have people in the NBA that are okay with these status quo.
The Detroit Pistons are a prime example. It's like the theory there is like would throw their season so they get top draft picks, so they get better players, right?
Because they're beholden to a certain amount of money and media rights and things like that. But
have a revenue share and everything.
Yeah, but here I think how much you win is very relevant to the sponsors you sign. And so there's a monetary aspect in it too, but the spirit of the team owners is with relegations and with just the way that the systems work and just the way the community is. If we're not winning, like look at how Steve responded, right? To
Big double lift.
Well, he did everything he could.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that he did that, and that was extreme because he thought that was the best course of action. But I legitimately would have thought that like if his thought was like, yeah, you have to go to like the moon and there you'll find your player who's been grown in like a secret government vat, and then like you have to bring him back. Like he would have done anything to win. He would have done anything to get out of relegations. I'm very convinced of that. And I think Reggie's like that too. And I think like as much as that guy and I have our differences, and we do, like he will do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And George is like that too. Like people don't get to see him in that light,
right.
But when he really is against a wall, he will be like the most rabid raccoon. Like he'll just burst out and just start clawing everything. And it's because it's like that ferocity that has been built into the older people in esports, because like your organization's all you have.
Yeah.
And like none of us even now are, I would say like, all of us are still, everything's still on the line. CLG may not necessarily become, the Lakers or like a standing brand 10 years from now. We could still not exist if we make the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
That may not happen when franchising comes in and the publishers like allow us to have that backing.
Right.
But I think that ferocity is going to stay in esports and make the scene competitive and exciting for at least the next 5 to 8 years,
mm-hmm.
where people are really trying to get after it because they just have it. They have it in their blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's why it's exciting competing against other competitors, right? Like so, like my competitors, like my true competitors, aren't, for me personally, are the other people in the other organizations doing the same thing as me, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, all I'm trying to do is outsmart them and outplay them all day.
Exactly.
Like, and I do that behind the scenes, and it'll make us to see what that looks like, right?
Yeah.
You don't actually even know fully what that looks like at times.
Really?
I don't think so.
Why not?
To an extent, the conversations I'm having, the research that I'm doing, and
the like actual logistics, the hard. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The dirt.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
The dirt. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Or like I said, like talking with renegades and like using them, using them sounds bad, but like using our relationship to like help progress CLG, right?
No, I get it.
Like that's.
I want to beat every CEO.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want Reggie and Jack and Steve and all of them to have a prayer.
Yeah.
The thing is that what's even cooler about that, right, is that there are groups of owners that talk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
CLG doesn't talk to anybody, and I don't really want to change that. Like I'll have my one-offs with like Jack and Reggie, and like we'll talk, but like George and I don't spend time with those guys.
Yeah.
Like we are trying to win. We are trying to beat them. We don't want to be a part of a cool kids club. We don't want to be a part of a group of people that's just like friendly and all buddy and like making deals. No, we want to freaking I want to crush everybody in business.
Yeah.
And that's all I think about. Like, am I like there are a lot of times where like I'll be like sitting in bed and I'll be pissed off because I'm like someone out there, another one of them is probably working right now.
Yep.
He's probably talking to his sponsor. He's probably doing something that's actually getting him going, and like I'm not doing it.
The
immediately makes me angry.
Yeah. Or the worst is when you're in contract negotiations and you know you're competing against another player with another org, and you have that thought like, are they talking to him now? Are they talking to him now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are they doing? What can I do? Right. So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. That's where I get really competitive too. Like business, all I want to do is win.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm super firm on that. Yeah.
But it's fun though. That's why that's why I changed industries, is because, and I told you this privately, where I wasn't able to exercise my competitive nature in a way that was healthy in my previous profession, and I just, ever since I stopped playing at college, like I just never went away, and I just like have to exercise it, and so I get to exercise it through this position.
What you were doing was still hard. Therapy is hard.
Yeah.
And you did a lot of therapy for a lot of really troubled people,
mm-hmm.
and you're doing a lot of good in the world. But you can, tell me about like why you shifted, and what made you come to CLG. I think that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
And what you were doing, because like obviously no one has context. So.
Yeah.
Mm.
So April, so this is 6 years, right? Yeah. So I guess past 6 years now. I've been practicing as a therapist, but I was doing it full time.
Mm-hmm.
Working at a lot of different sites and a lot of different the different population groups. And so my whole reason into getting to therapy was essentially to help people, and it didn't really matter like issues or what the presenting problems were. I just really wanted to be of value to people. And so I achieved that objective. I felt like I accomplished it. I can continue to do it and still do like on the side. But really, like I was saying, is like the competitive part of me has always been there, and I didn't have a medium to exercise it. And so it was like really getting to me, and I've played sports ever since I was 4, pretty much like 23 or 24, so like almost 20 years, right? And it's always been there. And so after grad school, not like having that anymore and getting married and everything, and then like just had the itch.
Yeah.
And growing up in the industry of video games on the developing side through a family and just playing all the times, I'm like, that was my outlet, right? Like that video games was the only way I could compete in my downtime. And so esports was always the thing I wanted to get into for pretty much the past 2 years, but I never really found a position that I felt I could fully utilize my skill set, and then also was a complement to what I was seeking. And so when I saw the position for CLG, it was not only great because it was CLG, but also too was like exactly what I had envisioned for myself, like almost to the T. And it gave me an opportunity to exercise not only my skill set in helping people grow, but exercise the competitive side that I have, and using my past experiences as a co-commissioner, or I'm still co-commissioner of the SECBL, and to take all my knowledge there and continue to help people grow, and give me like that outlet to where I really exercise like who I am, and who I am like, at the core is a competitive person. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like I care. Like it doesn't. Awesome. It's like the silliest things. And my wife is the same way. Like we can't play board games together because like it doesn't matter.
Instant divorce.
Yeah, really. We will just go at it.
The battle.
Yeah.
Mad at each other for weeks. Like yeah.
So like being here at CLG has not only been like an awesome experience, but like it's a very fulfilling experience at the same time. And it's not work. Like it's like the coolest part. Like I finally like got there. Like I always thought this. I was like I always wanted to have a job where like it wasn't work. Like I just want to do it. So my wife would be like, I'll spend time with her and she'll say, "Why are you working right now?" And I'm like, well, I guess technically I'm working, but like this is what I want to do for fun. You know? And it's like, I'll be watching the teams, or I'll be like looking up different players and stuff like that. And I guess technically it's work, but like I don't view it as work. Like it's exciting. Like, it's just what I like to do. So yeah, it's been really fulfilling, and the transition has been very positive for me personally.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
And are you still? So you're still acting co-commissioner.
Yep.
Of the league, right?
Yep.
And so you I'm actually curious about this. We've never talked about this, but has any of the experience on CLG changed your view on that and what you do with?
Yes. In a lot of different ways, actually. It's actually okay. So we'll talk about the business side for a second.
Yeah.
It actually has opened my eyes as to how we could better operate as a business, and
that's
advantages that we could take. It has been very helpful in the commissioner role in terms of like running tournaments and understanding what players' needs are. Now that I'm back on the other side of like the teams, right? Because like Riot or Valve or any tournament organizer, right? Like they determine tournaments for us and the rules and all that stuff. And so kind of being on the other side when I'm in my commissioner role, like I'm the one that actually determines all that. And so having those experiences has made me address issues that come up with teams very differently. So for example, we ran into illegal roster issues this year a lot. And so how I handled those situations this year was a little more harsh, because I understood like how important it is for integrity that the teams that are fielding illegal rosters are to receive some sort of punishment that is of significance. So I probably would have gone a little lighter in terms of punishments, but
Wait, do you mean when you saw that in esports, like with what just recently happened?
Yeah, so recently, like in the SCCVL, we had illegal roster situations.
Okay.
Yeah, so to clarify, so as a commissioner, I have to address these issues, right?
Yeah.
And so what we did of imposing fines and suspensions and all this stuff, we probably would have done, but not to the extent that we did this year, had I not been in CLG and understand how important. I've always understood it, but like it really just kind of emphasized even more like competitive integrity really is, and just playing by the rules as a whole. Because in esports, as you know, like transitioning back to esports, like there is some stuff that goes on that we probably can't really say, but like
there's a ton of stuff.
But like there's like really wacky, like shady stuff that goes on in certain games more so than other games.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean. Yeah. It's fun. It's the wonderful and also the dark side of Valve giving such complete control to tournament organizers for their game, right? And the LCS has a much more
structured.
That was a word that you could use. Yeah, Iron Fist would be another one that I would use. Yeah. To the benefit of creating a structured league that has that produces those results.
Yeah.
But I think Valve is an incredible company. Like the amount that they do with the number of employees they have, it's insane. But at the same time, like giving that kind of freedom, it does produce some interesting results. Yeah, especially our friends overseas. Yes. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff that goes on over there. I don't think even if I were just like totally boreballed out of stuff, I don't think I even understand it. You know, like there's just so many weird things that happen over there that.
And the thing too is like it's a game of telephone, right? So
like, we hear
really
like the third person that
what we hear.
Yeah.
It could be as bad as it originally was, or we get like this very like blown up version too.
Yeah, but you hear stuff like the competitive ruling that just went down for the $10,000 fine because they didn't have proper contracting. I mean that's a perfect example of and the minute that happened, George busted into the room and said, "Do we have all of our contracts in detail?" I'm like, "Yes, like we did it a long time ago. Like it's 100%, yeah." And that's exactly what he should do. But it was pretty funny. Yeah.
Yeah. So competitive integrity is important, and I think that's something in esports. So we've talked about this before, right? It's to my advantage that there are no outside of the league. Yeah, I don't think there's another game. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's another game where it's like I have any rules in terms of talent acquisition to abide by.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
And now,
to
clarify,
for whatever
I'm not
reason,
doing shady stuff.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is like for whatever reason we actually follow those. Well, I think the Riot actually. This is actually cool. I never thought about it this way, but. By actually putting in the anti-poaching rules, Riot actually created that as an esports standard because there really aren't a lot of top NA teams, at least, that will deliberately jack talent most of the time, unless like.
Yeah.
Do you disagree?
Well, I'm more in it than you are, I guess. But
that's
like,
true. It does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some. Yeah. There's some orgs that are a little bit more.
We've never
have that reputation.
We've never done it, have we? I don't think we've ever gone to a team.
I've personally never done it.
Yeah.
I don't know about before when it came.
I don't think I have either. I think we've always talked to the team and we've always honored if they could. We might get screwed for this, but I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure we can stand by that. Yeah, not guaranteed, but and we're talking specifically outside of League of Legends. To be clear, what we're talking about is there are no rules about poaching. So you can approach a team or a player outside of League of Legends. And you can ask them to join your roster. You can try to break them out of contract. You can really do anything. And the only publisher that really says anything about that is Riot.
Yeah.
But Riot setting that standard has kind of inadvertently created it for, I know amongst the PEA teams, that once the PEA got formed, it became more difficult to do that.
Yeah.
And but by virtue of that kind of alliance.
Well, I think
before that it was the Wild West.
Yeah. So I can tell. I'll share like how I operate.
Yeah.
Like it's super important to me that we maintain healthy business relationships with other organizations, regardless of who they are, and that's how I like to operate. Because it does me no good, right? Let's take, I don't know, let's make something up. Like, let's take like an NRG player, right? So let's pretend there's somebody on NRG like that I really want, right? I do some shady stuff. I get him to buy in that CLG is a better org, that he should be on our team and should leave NRG, right? That doesn't do me any good long term if I want to acquire a player from NRG again, right?
Yeah.
Because now what it's done is it's created bad blood between us. I can't really acquire another player, or if I try to, it's going to be harder each time, right?
Yeah.
And furthermore, it's like just not who I am by nature anyways. So...
Or what CLG is as an organization.
Yeah, or what we represent.
Mm-hmm.
And the PEA teams are usually teams that will have talent that we probably want to work with anyways. And so, like, acquiring teams off of them, we all operate the same for the most part anyways. And then, like, some of the smaller orgs, like, I'll just do it out of respect, and oftentimes I'll get, like thank yous. They'll be like, thank you so much for, you know, going through me.
The smaller orgs especially, I think they get really beat around. And
yeah. So it's really easy to, like, if you wanted to, like, you wanted to, like, step on somebody's toes, like a smaller org, like, you could.
What sucks too, because some of those are so cool, like Panda Global,
Panda
Global, Selfless, like a lot of those guys are
like Ryu at Selfless, like
I like Ryu a lot.
I like Ryu a lot. I like working with him, and
David at Panda's like always like has our back and like always talking good things about CLG and like just in general, like those are good guys. Like I mean they're keeping their organization small almost like deliberately, like they're not they just kind of like a lot of the times those guys just love the game. Yeah.
Ryu's approach at Selfless is it's different, but not different bad. Like it's respectable, like definitely respectable, like what he's doing there. But yeah, like going back to like the whole coaching thing is, if I have ever done it, it was unintentional. But I can safely say I don't think it's ever happened on my watch.
Yeah.
Because it's just not a good way to do business anyways.
No, yeah, and it's thinking short game.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? It's like when the community was like, hey, make a roster change. It's like, okay, so I can technically make a roster change, but like it doesn't solve, like it's like putting a Band-Aid over, like, I don't know, an amputated leg. Or like, okay, it's not really going to protect the bleeding. Like, it's going to help a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
But like a real solution to the problem, oftentimes, especially around roster changes are not like that quick to happen for a lot of reasons, especially mid-season. So
yeah, and it has to become completely clear that that's the only course of action. Yeah. Well, is there anything that you think you'd like people listening to know, or anything that you want to say, or like shout out? I suspect it'd probably be a few weeks before you're back on, or whatever you want to say. But
yeah, I think it's important that the community knows that we really are trying, and we're not perfect, and I myself will never be perfect in this role, but I can always promise I'm going to do my best and always have CLG's best interest in mind. Regardless if you guys agree or disagree with any decisions I make, it's always the sole focus is the best interest of CLG. And I think it's super important, and I care a lot about all of our teams, regardless of who they are or any standing, like if they're in last place or first place, like they're all the same to me, across all titles, and I just really want us to be the best. And my whole objective here, like we talked about at the very beginning of this podcast, is I want CLG to set the standard for what esports should be. And like that's like what I'm shooting for. Like that's like my goal that I really want to achieve. And then once we do that, then we'll just step it up from there and keep going and going. But yeah, I think it's important that the community really understands like where we stand, or where I stand at least in my role in the company.
It's definitely where we stand.
Yeah,
because the organization has your back and is supporting everything you do. And frankly, Matthew, you're amazing, and grateful you're here.
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. So, thank you guys. That's the first podcast from CLG. Hope you enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. There's a lot of insight in there for people. And thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to everybody that makes this possible. And thank you to all the people who have sent in messages and held us accountable.
Yes.
and really held us to the organizational standard that we expect to be. And see you next time.